Hello again, everybody. This is the head coach, Shannon Griffith, coming to you live again here on the Believe Network. Welcome aboard. Tonight, we're going to dive into a little bit of kind of what happened this past weekend with the Hoosiers in Columbus, Ohio, in a game of magnitude, I guess you could say, for Indiana that did not turn out the way the Hoosiers expected it to. With some disastrous plays that ultimately took them right out of all contention there in a matter of maybe a minute and a half. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a minute. But it's a game that, Indiana needed and would have been nice to have for them to get into the Big Ten championship game that is going to be against Oregon. Now the Indiana Hoosiers are out of their control as it pertains to that. For them to entertain anything of that magnitude would have to happen. Penn State and Ohio State both would have to lose on Saturday. Of course, Ohio State plays Michigan in their annual rivalry game. Penn State is at Maryland, which has always been a classic matchup between the two. Been better if Minnesota would have pulled it off at against Penn State. They were able to hold on to a 1-point victory off of a gutsy call by James Franklin in that ball game, where he went for it on 4th and 1, even with them up by 1 point, and enabled them to hold on to the football for the rest of the game. So that was a gutsy call by Franklin. He has been known to do that at a time or two. And of course, that's one of those calls. If it works, you are the story of the week from the standpoint everybody loves you. And if you don't make it there, everybody's wanting you fired for making a stupid call. So let's take care of a few things here as we get into this tonight. Bet Online, the world's trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, Bet Online provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen, with the largest selection of odds on everything from college football, NFL football, NBA, and college basketball, and NHL, as well as UFC fights. Head on over to BetOnline today to get in all the action, America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. Also, remember our affiliates that we do have listed on our bio pages, as well as the website betonline.com. With betonline.com. Hoosier Tailgate.com. I apologize. You can find a list of them there. As you can see, this game has got me flustered from Saturday, and I'm sure everyone has had a time to sit back, reflect on it, and realize that the sun did rise in the east on Sunday, and everything is back into what we call bucket week. And right now, that's the most important game on this Hoosier schedule, as it is the only thing that they have control over now is that game against Purdue this Saturday. And we'll get into that a little bit. Just one program reminder. There will be no Hoosier Tailgate Thursday. That's Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to all those out there that may be traveling and doing things of that nature. But I will have something out on Wednesday. I don't know if it'll be live yet. It will depend on a couple things, but I'll have my Purdue bucket game preview on Wednesday night this week, with Thursday being Thanksgiving. And then I have to be in Indianapolis for the high school state playoffs on Friday. So remember, the bucket game is a 7:00 kick. Fox Sports 1 is carrying that ball game. First night game per se for Indiana all year, and it happens to be the last game of the year. So buckle up, because I'm sure that one's going to be a little cold in Bloomington Friday night on that one there. But it's going to be a good one from that standpoint. And I know that there is a sellout crowd that is expected of an attendance of a sellout crowd. I do hope that every one that is capable or is in and around the Bloomington area can get to this game. These kids deserve a loud and obnoxious crowd for Purdue. It is a very pivotal game, not only from the standpoint of what it gives Indiana from a wins-loss record, an 11-win season, pretty significant, as well as a potential chance to get in the college football playoffs, and as well as the opportunity to finish, I believe it'd be third overall in the Big Ten. Well, take that back. Could be a tie for third in the Big Ten, probably bump them to fourth since whatever, Penn State being the quote-unquote highest team ranked. So anyway, it would be a magnitude of a season for Indiana in Coach Cignetti's first year there. And like I said, these kids deserve that opportunity to go out Saturday evening there in Bloomington with a great crowd on hand. And as Coach Cignetti said in his press conference, Ohio State crowd caused them a bunch of problems Saturday. And that is what a championship crowd does. It provides the energy as well as a disruption for the opposing teams that come in there. So it's a standard call mark at the shoe to have 100,000+ in attendance, irregardless of one's record. They will have that Saturday, even though Michigan's coming to town at 6-5, just getting bowl eligible. Throw out the records in these rivalry games. Same with Purdue. Throw it out, because we'll talk a little bit about where I think Purdue is now compared to what they were about 4 weeks ago. But big hopes that this will be a big crowd on hand on Saturday at there in Bloomington. Coach Cignetti gets a big raise, as we all know, that with the new contract and stuff, in the neighborhood of $8 million a year, I do believe. In that respect, let me see if I can get it here, because I did have it up at one time, but let's see if I can get this up on the display. There we go. Again, this was just released about the memorandum of understanding that the university and Coach Cignetti have an agreement to what is in place. And I know some people are asking why, or why would you, and why wouldn't you, and why wouldn't you wait to the end of the year? Are we jumping the boat a little too soon here? It's granted that he's had a great year, but it's year one, and this now locks him up for 8. So we'll go through some of the fine particulars in this. As you can see, it's an 8-year contract, $8 million plus $1 million in annual retention bonuses. Cignetti will make an additional $200 more in annual outside marketing and promotional income each year of the contract, which begins December 1st. I've been asked the question, what is outside marketing and promotional income? His coach's show would be one. Anything that he would do as a representative of the university would be a promotional type of environment, whether he goes to the alumni club or heads down on the different alumni outing tours that the Indiana has. That would per se be that category of the additional 200,000. Cignetti will set to make $6.8 million in such income, which includes showing up for public appearances and media interviews, corporate and sponsorship agreements. And there's where the $8.2 million comes from. Some incentives, as all contracts have. If he has 5 conference games won, he gets an additional $100K. If he gets to 6, that's $150. And the same applies for a Big Ten finish, positions will make $250K if they finish in the top 6, 500 if they finish second, and $1 million if they would win the conference championship. And then, of course, the college football playoffs bonus, if it gets into the first round, it's a $500K bonus. And as you can see, it goes up from there all the way up to $2 million if they were actually the national champions. If they would make it to a bowl game, they still get those additional bonuses each year. Here's another thing that they have in it, which I think is I may be a little bit new in this world of college athletics, especially for Indiana. He receives up to 50 hours of personal private plane usage per year, and then he gets in $25K per year courtesy car allowance with unlimited family use of the golf course and driving range. Now, that's very common in contracts. The plane usage, however, that may be something new at Indiana. I have never seen it. If any of you are in the chats, and you're welcome to join in or ask a question when we talk about certain things in today's show, by all means, please do so. If I can be of assistance in answering a question or two, whether it's pertaining to this, whether it's pertaining to the game this past Saturday, whether it's pertaining to the college football playoffs, so forth and so on, by all means, jump in. I appreciate you guys being here and taking part in our discussion. But that's a pretty good utilization of the private plane. I mean, that I can see him using quite a bit, especially I don't know if that would pertain to his usage for recruiting. I don't know if that's considered private, but I'm not positive on all that. Okay. But anyway, this is the big one though. If you want to know what I think is a big part of this contract, is Cignetti gets $11 million for on-field staff and support members. The second largest pool in the nation, Ohio State, has $11.4 million. This is at his discretion. So let me set it up for you this way. All he has to do to trigger it is tell Woodson that he's going to tap into the $11 million of the money. So let's say somebody comes after Brian Haynes, and they want to take him to another institution, and they're willing to pay him $2 million a year to be their defensive coordinator. Well, Sig can tap into that to match that money or whatever it would take to keep him in place. Same for any other coach in that category. So it's going to be essential to have that money at the ready, because you do not want to lose people to another job on the money issue. And Indiana's had that problem in the past where they've caught guys been taken from them because it was a sure money issue in that regard. So that to me is a huge bonus for Sig and what he can do with those monies when it comes time to tap into it. But he doesn't have to go through anybody for a yes, no. It's simply an acknowledgement. I'm going to use it. This is how much. And it's an automatic write-off on the AD and the president. So that's a pretty significant thing in the contract. And I'm not sure he had that in the original. If he did, it wasn't that extensive in it. So again, this kind of covers everything that is in this memorandum of understanding. Of course, when you have agents involved and lawyers and stuff, they have to go through and make sure every I is crossed and T is crossed and I dotted for all this. And I think it's an important facet that Indiana really a step to the plate here. Scott Dolson and the president, for that matter, have stepped up to the plate to make Sig one of the highest paid in the conference. I don't think he is at the top by no stretch of the imagination, but with all the incentives and stuff that they've got in it, as well as what he's already collecting, let's say he's living a pretty comfortable lifestyle. as is the assistants. I think they're paid pretty well. They're not in the upper echelon of the Big Ten, but we'll have to wait and see what all transpires in the offseason with that. But that was a huge moment in my mind. And I know some people were concerned about jumping in this soon on re-upping the deal and things like that. But there was always that opportunity that another program would come along and offer him a significant amount of money. And while he may say all the things about staying at Indiana and his wife loves it here and things of that nature, you know, money's still king in the situation. And it wouldn't surprise me one bit, because in college football, it's a what have you done for me lately mentality, and you got to get it when you're hot, because if you just wait around, you're gonna get you're gonna get bit in the fanny in that regard. But again, big bump, big everything for Coach Cignetti. I think Scott Dolson and the president Witten need to be applauded for their view, their vision. I'm not quite sure. Not every institution may or may not have done something like this in the first year of a contract. But at the same time, I think it shows the commitment to Cignetti. And I think there were some assurances that some facility things were going to be brought to the forefront in a rather expeditious fashion at Memorial Stadium, for one, and some other things in and around the stadium and practice and things of that nature. The biggest one in my mind for the stadium is Indiana has to get the press box done, and now. It has to be a all hands on deck mentality, and it has to be at the forefront of any campaign and fundraising, which is what I do now as a true 8 to 5 employee. This is the time to strike, to make something like that come to fruition with suites and things of that nature. The question you run into with that type of mentality is how fast can that get done? We're talking a very expansive / labor intensive type of build. And that would be the question. So we'll have to see what all happens in the meantime with that. But again, it gives you a insight into Coach Siggs' contract and things of that nature. The big question of the day is, how is all this going to impact the Indiana Hoosiers' chances of getting into the college football playoffs, losing to the number 2 ranked team for going into Columbus and unfortunately getting a loss, as everybody goes to win a game. They don't go there for any type of moral victories. They go there to win. And the days of playing for moral victories went out the window about 200 years ago. So we're here to win, and that's the main thing. Frank, I appreciate you coming on and saying that about the Indiana Hoosiers. I do believe you're correct in that assessment. I do believe that, number one, the kids are class acts. I really do believe that, the way they play, the way they handle themselves on the field of play. And I'd never seen them at one time or another do anything that was very quote unquote cheap. Not something like you saw against Kansas and Colorado, where Shedeur Sanders about lost his lower half of his body on a hit by a Kansas player. But they are, in that respect, and everyone on that staff, the ones that I know, and I know quite a couple, well, 2 or 3 of them at least, I have the highest respect for them from my days in college football. But I do appreciate that, and good luck to the battle with the team up north this Saturday over there. It will sure be a dandy. And again, appreciate you coming by and saying hello. And like we said, we always welcome anyone and everyone that wants to jump in a room and have a part and partake in the show. How will this loss go back to for the situation with the college playoffs and such? Now, I know with some of this stuff, and I'm going to try to get it up here with the think it's this one. Let me see here. Do I have... Let's see. Okay, let's do this. Here. That's not what I wanted, Coach. You dummy. Oh, okay. This is what I want. This is that college predictor that I had, and I'm going to come back to that in a second. This is ran by ESPN site. Let's see here. Well, I hope you're correct there, Frank, but you never know in this world that we're living in today in terms of a lot of things that are occurring. I'm going to talk about that in a second. I know that you mentioned something about what Shedeur did also in that environment, and I would agree, but I also understand that that was a hot and contested game that we did see there on Saturday with everything. How about now? Got me? I don't know why that happened, but I'm sorry. I'm going to go back what I was saying there. Miami will not play or has not played Clemson or SMU. Their one loss was to an unranked Georgia team. That's number one. SMU loss was to BYU 18-15 early in the season, like week 2 or 3. And at that time, BYU is like 15 overall. Now, BYU has fallen off because they've lost 2 weeks in a row. They just lost to Arizona State, but prior to that, they lost to Kansas, who was unranked and at the time 4-6 at the time, or 3-6 at the time, I believe. So this brings me back to my argument about Miami, SMU, and Indiana, and how does Indiana drop from 5 all the way back to 10 versus one-loss teams? Well, to me, when you look at that and you have equal number wins, you have to look at the losses and who they lost to. Well, Indiana lost to the second-rate team in the country. They held them to their lowest offensive output of the year and lost primarily because Indiana had 2 big blunders in that game that gave Ohio State 14 points. Not taking anything away from Ohio State. They won that game fair and square, and Indiana had won some games too by doing things in the special teams. That's a part of the game. But when you look at that and how they lost compared to how Miami has lost to like Georgia Tech on the road, and they got beat, and it was a touchdown point game, but the whole game they were behind, and they really had battled some teams throughout the year where they had to come from behind. Well, I agree, Robert, but this is just not the AP. This is the coaches poll too, because they're identical. And that's why I'm bringing this up, because I was surprised by the coaches in all this. SMU, they lost to BYU. Okay, legitimate loss, at the time ranked, but they do have a victory over a ranked team, which is Louisville in the ACC. But Louisville has completely fallen off the map. They're 7-4, not taking anything away from that win. But what I never understood in some respects is it only counts as a ranked win as when they're ranked. It never counts as a ranked win, even if after you play them, they become ranked. I don't even know how to explain it to you why it is that way, but it just is. It just seems a little odd to me that a ranked victory counts at one point, but doesn't carry through the end of the year. But anyway, so when I look at Miami and SMU in front of Indiana, I do take a little bit of exception to the rule that if Indiana is going to drop from 5 behind two lost teams in Georgia and Tennessee, they should at least be ranked in front of Miami. We could debate SMU, but Indiana should be at least 8 or 9 in the country at worst, not 10. Now, I'm arguing that it makes absolutely no sense to argue these points at this point in time, but at the same time, these are things that have to be brought to the forefront in our argument, that you've got to compare apples to apples. This is not a style contest, and unfortunately, I got a feeling that some of it is. The other question that I would raise is Notre Dame. They lost to an unranked 500 team in the Mid-American Conference, but they're giving them a pass on that loss because they've won and the way they've won against Army and Navy. Don't tell me Army and Navy are comparable good wins when those two teams don't even come close into this discussion as it pertains to quote unquote power conferences. Now, Notre Dame did beat Louisville, and at the time Louisville was ranked, and yeah, but they really haven't played anybody of significance since NIU, but Louisville. So their schedule is not a world beater either. Now, Georgia and Tennessee, I don't even want to get into the SEC debate. It's pointless because everything they talked about a week ago went flushing down the toilet when Alabama lost on the road to an unranked, bad Oklahoma team, as did Mississippi, who lost at Florida. Now, I'll give Mississippi more of a break because Florida has turned out to be a pretty good team. In some respects, they've completely turned their season around. In some fashions, kind of like Kansas has in a way. But anyway, the bottom line is this, is that Indiana should not be 10th in either coaches or AP poll. To me, This was them trying to give Indiana the shaft, because you see Clemson there at 9-2. And I know we have said that Miami and SMU, if they play in the ACC championship game, that they're not going to take into account the loss in that ball game. You mark my words, they will. Because Clemson will say that they should be in the college football playoffs if they beat South Carolina on Saturday, which will be a big test, but they will be 10-2 and they should be in, because you can't say anything about them not playing somebody, because they never played Miami. They never played ASMU. But the thing is, if you want to play them, get to the conference championship game. But when they put Clemson to 12, Boise State's in. So when they put Clemson to 12, I'm telling you that 8, 9, 10 is going to be a very fluid position at the end of the year. Now, Georgia plays Georgia Tech. Tennessee plays Vandy, and that's a big rivalry. Notre Dame plays USC, and USC has kind of found some life. So that's why I said it's not overly important to get lost in this argument of who is or who isn't. The last thing I'll show you here on all of that is our predictor. And Indiana did lose. So we're going to say right now that Indiana is going to win against Purdue. They don't make it into the Big Ten championship. But with that win, they're going to have a 99% chance of making the playoff. In all likelihood, they will travel unless something happens in front of them. And I'm guessing they'll go on the road. Now, what's unique about this, and I'll have to wait till tomorrow night. If things were to be the same with the standings and all this, the interesting thing about this whole thing will be it could set up a game that Indiana could travel to South Bend to play Notre Dame. And what a game that would be to see, because that would be a great opportunity for not only the Big Ten, but for Indiana to walk into Notre Dame and play them in the first round. So we'll see about all that and how it comes out. I'm assuming, David, you think that Indiana should be ranked 7th overall on that comment. I'm not disagreeing. As with that, we can all sit here and debate the 3, SMU and Miami with Indiana. But again, I think the committee, or not the committee, but the AP and even the coaches poll are giving a little bit of style points and a little bit of brand awareness. Notice how Miami's always been around there. They look at Miami and think of the U from way back in the 80s, but they also look at it as them having this great speed. Now, they do have a great quarterback in Ward. Some think he's a Heisman Trophy winner. And all of a sudden, they think they should be somehow in the upper echelons of the top 10 when they haven't really done nothing. And this is the first year. So is Indiana. But SMU's in the same boat. They haven't done anything of overly significance. They had a good year last year, the first year in the ACC, but they didn't play Miami and they didn't play Clemson. And at the same time, I think they give them a little bit of style points because they're in Texas, the hotbed of high school football. So I do think Indiana, and when it comes to those ratings, they do lack the brand awareness and the noise that's outside of all these people's offices because they lost at Ohio State. Well, there's a lot of teams that are going to lose at Ohio State when you go there and play the number 2 ranked team in the country. Not too many teams would win there, including Oregon if they had to go there. And I won't be shocked if they beat Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. But we'll see how this plays out with the College Football Playoff Committee and how that comes out tomorrow night. So it'll be interesting to see where they put Indiana and how they seed them. Now, you can take your guess. It can be anywhere from 7 through 10. You know that Georgia's going to leapfrog them. You know that Tennessee's going to leapfrog them. More brand awareness, and they're going to say because they're in the SEC and so forth and so on. But anyway, I can get into all the debate with all that stuff. It's so crazy to look at it in so many ways that it's now crazy. But for all those other haters out there talking about what Indiana's played this year, well, Michigan's bowl eligible, Washington's bowl eligible, and Nebraska's bowl eligible. And I told you when Indiana played all three of those teams, they were either at 500 or had a winning record. They weren't playing against teams that were behind the eight ball. Matter of fact, when they played Maryland, I think Maryland at the time was 3-1. So for all these people that talks about the Big Ten and Indiana's played anybody, well, they don't do the research and they don't understand the full dynamics of it all. They're just looking at who Indiana has been versus who Indiana's now. So again, don't argue with somebody about that because you're never going to win the debate. Even when you put the facts in front of some people, they're just going to ignore it and say, Indiana got throttled by Ohio State. They didn't even watch the game. They just watched the score. So anyway, first couple things here with this bucket game with Purdue coming up on Saturday. And then I'll get back to the Ohio State game some with all this. Whoops. I'm going the wrong way, guys. The bucket game on Saturday, I tell you this about Purdue. Purdue went up to Michigan State, fell behind 24-3, rallied back, and actually outgained Michigan State on the evening in resounding fashion. Something like over 500 yards to Michigan State's 300 or something like that. It was a very lopsided, and the quarterback Carson is a legit player. Got a great arm. He can make a lot of throws, and they got a tight end that's fabulous, a big-time player. So that was one game that they fought back. This team is 1-whatever they are, 1-10. They go to Michigan State on a Friday night. Nobody cares. But this team battled their you-know-what's off and almost got back into it late, but was unfortunate and didn't get over the hump, and they lost 24-17 because they spotted them 21 points in the ball game. So that's number one. Number two, Illinois, who right now I believe is 8-3 overall and had a miraculous win at Rutgers. If you haven't seen that, go Google that on YouTube or something on how Illinois won that ball game. It's crazy. But Illinois was up 27-3 against Purdue. And Purdue had a 24-point third quarter and tied the game. Actually went ahead with less than a minute left in the game. Illinois made some big plays on offense, got into field goal position, and nailed it. Scored at first in overtime, as did Purdue. Purdue went for two, which I totally agree with Coach Walter's sentiment there. On the road, looking for your first win. You got a chance to win the ball game from the 3-yard line, and it didn't work. And you can't be disappointed in that result because of how those kids battled back. So there's two games I'm pointing out to you where Purdue has been overly competitive in. Now, Ohio State beat them pretty good, but they actually ran the ball against Ohio State pretty good and didn't have the amount of sack issues that Indiana had. Indiana, if you take all the sacks away, Indiana rushed for like 170 yards on the day. Lawton had almost 80 of them. And Ohio State, if you take away the one big run, was under 100 yards rushing. And like I said, they only had 316, which was their lowest offensive output of all year. Now, part of that was because every time they got the damn football, it was like at Indiana's 40-yard line. So it's hard to have a lot of big plays when you're that close. But I just lay caution to people about this bucket game. Indiana is a 28.5 point favorite. Over under is 56.5. Although it's a night game in Bloomington, 7 o'clock. Purdue is not to be taken lightly. They are fully capable of winning a football game on anyone's field at any given time because they do have an explosive offense and their defense isn't that bad. They have suffered a lot of issues Indiana had previous years when it came to not getting over the hump, making stupid decisions, turnovers, things of that magnitude. They were very competitive against Northwestern for the most part. Nebraska was an early game prior to Indiana playing them, and that moved Nebraska at the time to 3-1, and Nebraska handled them pretty well. But at the end of the day, because of what they've done, they fired an offensive coordinator. Walters, the head coach, has taken over the offensive play calling aspect of things offensively, even though he's known for defense. He's taken that play calling over, and they're playing hard. They have not given up. They haven't, thrown in the towel or anything of that nature. So they're a team that will do everything in their power on Saturday evening to keep Indiana out of the college football playoffs. And by beating Indiana at home, on the road at Bloomington, they would wreck a season for Indiana. Even though Indiana's had a great year, no matter what, this one game is either a great season with an exclamation point on it with the Hoosiers making the college football playoffs, or is it an average football season at 10-2, losing 2 games at the end of the year and going to a bowl game? And it's hard to believe that we're sitting here complaining about either scenario and saying, I want scenario 1 over scenario 2. So I said that a little tongue in cheek, but because I think Indiana has a tremendous year, there's been a lot of people that I know have made a fools out of themselves after this ball game against Ohio State and talking about this and that and, how Indiana's still Indiana and, just stupid stuff. These kids have played their ass off for Signetti. They deserve every opportunity they got to get a win Saturday. They've got to play the game. They got to play with emotion. They've got to play with vigor. The offense has got to get back on track. Defense has played well. Defense has played well all year, and you can say they played really well against Michigan. And this defense has had its back against the wall against 2 big-time opponents and shut them down inside the 5. They kept Michigan out of the end zone, and they stuffed Ohio State on their first major drive where they converted like 3rd and 25 and 4th and 10. And Indiana stopped them 4th and 1 at the goal line, and they had 2 chances. So the defense has done its part. It's the offense that has kind of stumbled around here the last couple of weeks, and they got to get it fixed. And even Sig referenced that today in the presser, is that they got to get it fixed or they're going to be in a world of hurt come this week with Purdue. So that's kind of my take on those 2 things. I don't want to take up too much time with that and belabor a point with it all the time because, like I said, we're on to this game with Purdue on Saturday, and I want to talk a little bit about this game with Ohio State from Saturday, get some video up here and see just a couple things that I think are important to point out in this ball game and kind of what happened here. Here's the disastrous punt. Now, I know that there were some people that kind of got on this kid's Instagram page and was really kind of saying some stupid stuff to him, and that's not called for, okay? Because this kid has done a darn good job this year punting, and remember, they haven't punted that much. So this was still a key component in this ball game. He's got to make this catch. There's no ifs and buts about it. You've got to make this catch. Punters are usually one of your top 5 people on the team with good hands when you think about it. But I don't know what happened here. I don't know if the ball became slick because the mist is, coming down at a pretty good clip there in Ohio Stadium. But I mean, this was one of them right here that ultimately handed them bad points there. And this is right before half. And if they get this and get it off, I do think they go in at half 7-7. I really do. I just this play reminded me so much of the Michigan State game where Michigan had the lead late in the game. They muffed the punt, and Michigan State picked it up, went into the end zone for a score, and beat Michigan at Michigan. It was the Sean McDonough famous call of where his voice cracks and saying that he muffs the snap and things of that nature. But he's got to have this one. That's all there is to it, and that kid knows it more than anybody. And everybody makes mistakes. That's the thing. Nobody is perfect. We strive for perfection, but we ultimately fall short. Now this one here, Zig explained it in the presser today. This punt is really supposed to be. Let's see here if I don't know if I get my. I guess I don't have my tools, but this punt essentially is supposed to be in the on the right side here, over here on the right hash towards the boundary. And what happened was, I guess you could say he hooks it to the left that allows Downs to get a pretty good catch on it and returned it back 78 yards. But the thing of the matter is the coverage, where the coverage is thinking it's going, is to their right, and it goes to their left, and that's a major problem. So again, this is after Indiana went 3 and out on the first drive of the second half. It's still a 7-point game. He does what he's supposed to do, and the ball is way over here to the left. And now I know some people want to think that this happening right there is a push in the back. You're not going to get that because the kid is putting his hands up. So even though he's pushing him there, it's not a full thread push in the back. And the guy at the top is diving. He's not being pushed. So the guy that's going to make the tackle here, that is the long snapper. Well, that's a mismatch in open space with Caleb Downs. I'll just tell you that right now. So we have one big opportunity, and he gets away. And this is not a push in the back coming in here late. This right here, he does not push him, even from the end zone. I think I have it on here. He is not pushing that defender right there. So he, at this point, is got clear sailing to the end zone as there's no other. And this one, some people are trying to say this one on the boundary was a push in the back. It's not a push in the back because the Indiana kid spins out of it. Now, if you want to complain that he's getting grabbed there, okay, but probably not going to get that call. And then, of course, Downs makes one big cut, and, you know, his speed against everybody else's speed is just, you know, the party's over, so to speak. I don't think I do have the end zone on here. So those two plays, and I'll get to some other ones here in a second, those two plays in the special teams, like I have said, and I'll say on my deathbed, if you get scores in special teams, the hidden yardage aspect of a game, you are not going to climb that hill. It's almost way too much to overcome, especially against the second-rate team in the country. Just not going to do it. You have a muff punt that gives the ball in the 5. You get a punt return for a touchdown. A matter of 14 points in a matter of about 3 minutes in this ball game was what it took, and it was over. I mean, even at that point, 21-7, you're down 2 scores. You think that, well, you got a chance, and it's not that you don't. It's just that it's going to be tough sledding up the hill. But right at this point, offense wasn't doing their part either. So, you know, it's one of those things that, unfortunately, let's see here. I'm going to get back to the iPad here. For some reason, My pin's not showing. Okay. Well, doesn't want me to draw on it tonight. I'm going to show you the first drive of the game. This was impressive. And I don't care who you think. Ohio State, especially those in the attendance, looked at this and said, oh, shit. Because Indiana just went right down the field on the third-ranked defense in the country and converted on some big third downs and put the ball in the end zone to go up on their first drive of the game. And at that point, it went all downhill from this point forward for Indiana. So this one here, as you can see, and this is the other thing, you can tell they're having problems with the crowd because watch Curtis here. He's going to go for the ball, but he's all of a sudden right here, he's checking it. He's going to check it. See how he's stepping forward? He's going to make a check there. So now he gets caught into the play. And I do believe his only play here was to throw it up. And this was actually almost a great throw and catch. Unfortunately, it was just a little bit off in that regard. Here's the big third down one. Now watch the protection here, and I want to show you this twist that's happening on the right-hand side of the screen here, okay? Indiana had a terrible time Saturday against this type of setup that they blocked perfectly in the first drive of the game. This twist here, where they're bringing 33 around, ends up getting a sack later in the game, and it's the exact same blitz. There was no pressure and anything. This is a 5-man rush. They're dropping the end. They're playing zone in behind it, and Curtis has got a great pocket, and he rips the throw in there. And that's the Curtis we know and love right there. Okay, this is the 3rd and 6. Again, Ohio State is bailing out. They make you look like they're coming, and the reality of it is they're going to go into what they call basically kind of a Tampa 2 look, where this Mike Backer is just running to get in the deep third, and it ends up being cover 3. See how they're playing it? Right there, it looks like, man, he bails, the end drops, and they're playing cover 3. So, again, up front, you're getting a 4-man pressure. You got to block that, and he's got plenty of time. That's a perfect pocket. He steps in and rips it right in behind the backers for a big first down, even though he had the tight end, Horton, wide open as well. And right at this time, you know, Curtis was on a mark. Then they get down here, 1st and goal, put the big fella in, and they get a big, sorry about that. They get a big touchdown here. And this isn't blocked correctly. I'm going to show you why. It's not blocked correctly because they're getting into a counter game here, and they get penetration between the center and the right guard. Kadick is got to get back because of the way Ohio State's aligned here. So it's not blocked correctly, but because Lawton can make people miss, he makes a guy miss, and he's got the strength to burn it through downs and finish it up. First drive of the game, that's a touchdown. Okay. This is a 3rd and 6. Indiana's up. This is, again, it's nothing different. It's not an overload. This is just completely a blown pass protection. So either the left guard should be coming out here, and Kadick should be coming to the guy in the A gap there, and Ellison should be a scan guy. So they blow this, and Ellison's thinking he's got the Mike Backer in all this, and he's too late to adjust. And at this time, Curtis sees that. You got 2 high rush ends. He's trying to spin out of it, and there's just nothing there. And even the routes, he doesn't have anybody in routes. So that's a hell of a sack. This is the 3rd and 1. That was a horseshit call, if you want my personal opinion on this. This is the one that they call Bamba for, who's down here in the slot. This is completely on Ohio State. This is offsides by a mile. This isn't even close to being a legal procedure. And I'm telling you, the Big Ten's got some problems with some officiating because they haven't been great this year on some critical calls. But you can clearly see the defensive tackle encroach the neutral zone and make contact, and there's nobody else moving. That is not procedure. Now, you see how they had to go to the silent cadence here? You see the right guard using his left hand to let Kadick know it's time to snap it. I think this became a problem for IU because that enabled Ohio State to tee off on the snap count. So they didn't have the element of surprise anymore. But this is not a penalty on Indiana. That's a horseshit call. So now it goes to 3rd and 8. And now Indiana, in a 3-man looking rush, Ohio State's going to bring total of 5, and they bring a weak side zone blitz down here. Again, this is a blown assignment by the offensive line. It's got to be the left guard. He's got to fan into the B gap, and he's got the guy running through the B, and the left tackle's got to get out to number 0, and he lets him scot-free, and he hits the quarterback, and this is the fumble that Curtis had in this game. Okay? So, I mean, I don't want to belabor a point there, but those were some of the things that Indiana had not shown all year in game film of blowing assignments like that. Now, that can be attributed to the noise. Maybe it's the occasion. There's a little more pressure on you, and things are not going right, so guys are trying harder than they normally would, and that's what happens in a game like that. But this defense, I'm going to show a few clips of our defense Saturday because I want to tell you something. These kids, let's see, that's not it. That's not it. I got to find it. Oh, here it is. I want to show you a few clips here. This is the drive, first drive of the game. Indiana, I'm just going to let it play. They go 3 and out. This is a great play by the linebackers, and Fisher turning it up inside. So they get 3 yards on first down. So now it's 2nd and 7. Throw. Great play on the outside. He turns it in. Great leverage, and you get the guys coming to the ball. So now you're going to have 3rd and 5 against Ohio State. You like your chances here. They go, again, 4-man rush. They're going to throw it, and they don't give anything. Rally to the ball. First punt. First 3 plays, 3 and out for Ohio State, and they're punting, and Indiana scores on the first drive. Indiana, again, did not trail in the first half of this ball game. It was 7-0 at the end of 1. Okay, this is after a bunch of penalties. It's 1st and 20. Okay, give them that. Make a nice play on this boundary. It's 2nd down and 25 now. Again, play action pass. This is the only time Indiana got pressure in the sense to make a sack against Howard. This is the only time. Carpenter actually misses it off of a twist, and he's able to undercut it. And again, Howard makes a dumb play there and gets intentional grounding called on him. So now, whoops, I need to go back one. And then this is the third down and 25. This cannot happen. And what happens is he breaks contain, right? We couldn't get to him. So right now there's trouble, and he gets Tate, who's running a drag route across the field, and he makes a great throw. So even at that, it's 4th and 10. Okay, you still like your chances here because they're going for it, and it's very unlikely they're going to make it, right? Watch Fisher. And this is a good route that Ohio State ran against Indiana's coverage. They schemed this up. Fisher almost gets to him. He gets it away and hits the void in behind the linebacker in the corner, and they get a first down. That had a definite whoops, I'm not even showing you guys. I'm sorry. That last play had a definite problem for Indiana. So that's the throw that got it down there to keep them on, 1st and goal. This is the 3rd and 3 play. Again, good job there of stopping him short. And then here's the 4th and 1. Now, Ohio State uses this play later in the game, and they throw the pass to the tight end, but Indiana stuffs the number 2 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes from inside the 5 on 2 chances from that area of the field. And this is a good chance to look at it from that point of view. And just a heck of a job by all of them. And then Kamara making the tackle. And again, this defense played well, really well. So then, if you remember, they had the fumble, and this is the time that it goes where Indiana, it's not this play, Indiana has to go on the field. Again, they got the ball inside the 25-yard line. They get them to 3rd and 14 after a couple plays, and then Indiana comes up with a big play, interception. Pounds makes a great play, and the defense again stymies the number 2 ranked team in the country from getting any more points. And those kids played their asses off. That defense played with passion. They played free. They played loose. The only problem was there was a couple plays because of the way the offense was struggling. They needed to get more takeaways. They needed to find a way to, whatever in that ball game. But defense played well enough to win that ball game, and the defense was not responsible for 14 points. So the reality of the matter is the defense really only gave up 17 points to a team that was averaging 37 points a game and only 316 yards on the day. So when anybody talks about how Ohio State hammered Indiana, the 2 defenses are the ones that stole the show in that game, because neither offense really had a lot of success on the day, especially Ohio State running the ball really didn't have a lot of success. Now, Howard had a heck of a game. He threw 80% completion rate, and he had a 200-yard passing game. So give the kid credit where credit's due. But at the end of the day, Indiana defense played pretty damn well against the number 2 ranked team in the country, and they're going to need that same type of performance against Purdue on Saturday night. And we'll have all that on Wednesday for you guys. Remember, no show on Thursday. I'll have something on Wednesday. I don't know if it'll be a live. We'll see how it all happens here over the next day or so in terms of that. But there'll be something up on Wednesday for the breakdown of Purdue and what Indiana will need to do to get to that magical 11-1 season and solidify a place in the college football playoffs. So I hope everyone has a wonderful evening, a good rest of the week. If you are traveling, safe travels to all. We'll see you all in Bloomington on Saturday for a 7 o'clock kickoff for the Bucket game, as well as I will be in attendance at the Bucket game because I'm just going to come down from Indianapolis State High School playoffs where I do color on radio and head on down on Friday night, I believe. I'm not quite sure yet, but I'm coming to the Bucket game because I want to see history made with Indiana wrapping up a playoff spot. So until then, I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith. We'll see you Wednesday right here on the Hoosier Football Tailgate, right here on Believe.